What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? Today we're going to be interviewing Cap Brony. If you guys haven't seen my interview on his channel, go to the card right now and you can check it out. It's an amazing interview. I posted a little bit of a preview of it on my channel a little bit ago, but if you want to get the full thing, you need to go over to Cap Brony's channel and not only subscribe, but watch my interview. So today we're going to be talking with Cap Brony here about his religious affiliation when he was a child and what that looked like as he was growing up, and then, how he became an atheist. And so that's what we're going to be looking at today. If you're interested in that, then please stay tuned. All right. Hey there, Cap Brony. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
That's awesome. Now, I'm kind of curious, can you explain, your name a little bit? Why Cap Brony?
Yeah, I originally started off as a Brony channel where I did MLP stuff. That was the original point of it, and I was trying to think of something that was unique and that, no one had. And I chose Cap Brony because at the time I was a member of Civil Air Patrol, and Civil Air Patrol is abbreviated CAP. So the name Cap Brony just kind of came about from there.
Oh, okay. That's cool. How long have you been a Brony, I guess?
2013, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's cool. Well, now let's start off with your affiliation with religion as you were growing up. Were you born into a religious family, or did you kind of come into it, or were you religious at all?
Yes, I was. My parents are Lutheran, although I identified more as Southern Baptist because of where we lived. The nearest Lutheran church is about 20 miles away, and I was friends with the pastor's family at the Southern Baptist church here where I live. So I went there more. So I more identified as um, Southern Baptist, but even though I was technically a registered Lutheran.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Um,
Well, I
so
mean,
yeah, that was. Oh,
I'm
sorry.
wondering how does that differ? Like, you consider yourself Southern Baptist. How does that differ from Lutherans?
Lutherans. Oh God, how do you explain? I just, to me, a lot of the things that I at the time that Southern Baptists had taught on, or at least the pastor I had taught on, I felt I identified more with than the uh Lutheran. One of the issues I had with Lutherans, especially around confirmation age when you got to get confirmed in the church, was actually the communion. That was one of my big issues with it because they believed in the transformation of the body and blood.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you read the biblical text, it says remembrance, and any time remembrance is used, that it was always done as symbolism. So it was never meant to be literal blood and body, and that was one of my biggest issues that I had with them over that. Because at the time, I was like, communion's like a really big thing. How can you completely screw this whole thing up?
Mm-hmm.
And the other one was, I guess one of the things that really bothered me was it was too structured. Because to me, a sermon should be spoken from the heart. It shouldn't be, structured as in sit down, as I always called it, Sunday calisthenics. Sit down, stand up, sit down, stand up. It shouldn't be like that. It should be more, like I said, with how my former church, Southern Baptist one was. So that was kind of my big issue between the two and why I identified more in the Southern Baptist category instead of Lutheran.
Okay, so it wasn't really about theology. It was more about the actual, I guess, process of worshiping and whatnot.
Well, but I would say a little on theology with the communion. And the other one that another issue I had with Lutheran is they never mention accepting Jesus as your Lord and Savior, accept Him in your heart. Southern Baptists always preach that. So that was another. So there was some theology based on why I didn't identify as Lutheran more than Southern Baptist.
Okay. All right. Well, now, I'm kind of curious. Like, did that like really cause any kind of rift in your family? Like, you
No,
feeling more that way than Lutheran?
no, no, not that I can remember. I mean, they were very supportive of me wanting to become a Southern Baptist minister. Yeah, I did want to be a minister at one time.
Oh, okay. Did you want to be like a Southern Baptist kind of minister, or
Yeah,
the? Okay.
Southern Baptist.
All right. Well, I mean, did you start down that path at all?
To an extent, I never made it to seminary school. My faith
Okay.
got shaken too much before I went.
All right. Well, like, while you were a Southern Baptist,
Okay.
did you like really participate in like church activities or like
Yes.
Bible studies
Yes.
or whatnot?
Yes. Yes. I was a fairly regular visitor. I did all the youth camp stuff. I actually, while I was still there, I actually wanted to come back and help with youth camp and things like that. I was a fairly active member of that church.
Okay, that's cool. I know for me, like I really didn't get too active in the church until I joined a non-denominational church. They had like a youth night that I would go to, and I really wouldn't go to like the Sunday, I guess church services, but I would go to more of the youth things because I was really wanting to connect with like other people my age. And at least down here where I live, like church is the only way to really do that. At least when you're a kid, because it's not like I could go to a bar or something, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand. I mean, I wasn't like, the most active person in the church. But I would say I was about 70% of the things that they did with like youth in church I was at.
Okay,
So it wasn't like super active, but I was fairly active.
okay. Well, now let's get on into where you started questioning your faith. What started you down that path.
Yeah, I was actually at college, studying for a networking degree at the time. I ended up switching to drafting, but at the time I was studying networking, I was also studying to go to seminary school. I was doing, different Bible studies, reading different things, looking different things up because that was another goal I was hoping to achieve after I got that degree. And I had a friend of mine who looked at me and said, "You don't believe this, do you?" And I went, "Well, yeah, of course I do. I want to be a pastor." And he goes, "So you believe this, this, and this?" And I'm like, "Well, I know what you're referring to, and that's Old Testament." Um, so he's like, "No, look at it here in the New Testament." And he points out some verses, and I'm like, "Oh." And he's like, "Do me a favor, read the Bible. Start at Genesis 1:1 and go to the very last verse of Revelation. Do not skip around, even the boring parts, read it through." And I'm like, he's like, "Can you accept that challenge?" I'm like, "Okay, I will." He never brought up the Bible again, except to ask, "Where are you at?" And I would go, "Well, I'm in Exodus, whatever." He goes, "Okay, keep reading." And I did. And I think I made it into Second Kings when I finally was like, I can't believe this. Then I spent the entire summer studying religions and just anything I get my hands on to read and look up. Because I'm like, well, if that religion is wrong, maybe there's a right one out there. So from there, I went more into an agnostic phase. I guess it's more of an agnostic deist because I still believe that God created everything. And then from there, it went into full agnostic. And then from there, it just was, you know, I was an atheist.
Hmm.
So that's kind of how through studying the Bible more and more and other religions, I just finally slowly got to being an atheist.
Okay. Well, I mean, like so you were reading the Bible up to Second Kings, and then you were just like, there's no way I can believe this. Do you remember do you remember anything that stuck out to you that you found yourself
Mm,
like, oh, this is bullshit? Like, was there anything like that happened? I mean, there's the obvious things of like Noah's Ark and the
Yeah,
Genesis account and
uh,
everything like that, but that obviously didn't
yeah.
stop you.
No, no, Noah's Ark. I was never one of the. I was never a young Earth creationist. The whole world flooded. I always understood that what they knew of the world was just that little piece of real estate they had. So I'm like, it had to have been a local flood. I was more of an old Earth creationist for when I was a Christian. I was never a yak. Um, so from there, it was more actually the morality of God. It was, if God is supposed to be all loving and good, yet he does this and this and this and this. And finally, I just read too many immoral things that he had done. And I'm like, well, God cannot be all good. And the God of the Old Testament is the same as the God of the New Testament. So I can't, I can't really follow it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm like, even if he's real, I cannot follow it in good conscience. And so I kind of started, like I said, that's what led me on my path. So it's more the morality of it. And then later on, I started looking into the science of it. Like later on, after I started getting more and more vocal with my atheism on Facebook, um, and then I started looking more and more into the science and everything else, and then I'm like, yeah, this is all BS.
Right. So what made you finally take that leap from like more of a deistic kind of perspective to an atheistic one?
Um, I think it was because, like I said, it was just more studying that got me more into the agnostic, where I didn't believe in a God, but I wasn't sure if there was one, and I think it was more the baggage with the term atheist of why I was really hesitant to accept it, and then watching some of Armand's points and stuff and some of his videos, I just finally went, you know, I don't believe in a God. I am an atheist, and that's kind of where it finally it just more or less it just clicked one day that I am an atheist.
Yeah. Well, I totally sympathize with that because one of the biggest hurdles I had was being okay with the term atheist. I had been taught all my life that you got to believe in God or you got to believe in some kind of supernatural power because, I mean, that's just duh. That's just how the world works. And so I had to get over that hurdle of feeling like it was wrong to be an atheist and feeling like it was wrong to doubt the existence of a God. And so that was my biggest hurdle. Did you have any other kind of big hurdles?
The biggest one I can think of besides accepting the term atheist was I mean, even after I became an atheist, I still held on to this view for a long time, but it's not so much of an afterlife as it is more of a soul perspective. I mean, best way to describe it is more like the Force is the best way to describe kind of how my soul belief was. Of we're all connected through something, some life force type thing, and that's why when you meet someone, you can feel an instant connection with them. It was because I did not want to give up on that concept for the longest time. So I think that was the biggest hurdle was getting over that.
Okay, yeah, no, yeah, I could see how that would be a pretty big one for me. Like the soul thing and like the afterlife thing were kind of like light switch things. Like I could, it's like, oh, there's no eternal heaven. Oh, okay, well, like
Yeah.
I was able to just shut that up. But that's it's interesting that that particular part right there was kind of what you wanted to hold on to. I guess I'm a little bit more binary in that sense because once I stopped believing in God, I was like, well, fuck it, I don't believe in God anymore. And then it was just accepting the term or the label of atheist. Um, but I'm kind of curious, like, what was the reaction of like friends and family after you decided you were an atheist, or did you stay in the closet for a little bit?
I stayed in the closet for a couple of years and I finally more or less out of myself because I got tired of seeing people post all the really feel good Bible verses. I'm like, there's a laundry list of ones out there. So I started on my Facebook page with what I called quote the Bible. It was just well, it's kind of more just saying, okay, you want to quote the Bible? Well, let's look at it. And I started posting all the really messed up verses.
Yeah.
And then I started getting into contradictions. Let's play Bible contradictions. And from there, that's where I started getting into more of the science of things. I started getting more into, what the Bible, where it contradicts each other, um, just everything like that. And that's kind of where my atheism outspokenness kind of started, was just me voicing my opinion on my Facebook page. I had some friends who were more or less okay with it. They haven't really said anything. I've lost some friends because I'm an anti-theist in my views and when I post on my Facebook page, which fine, whatever. You want to post all the good Bible stuff, but you don't want to be friends with me when I post the bad. Fine, whatever. I can live with that. I've had, uh, um, I've had family, my parents, my dad hasn't really said too much to me. My mom which actually surprised me. I figured she would be more. I guess it really actually surprised me, I guess, thinking about it with her. But she was like, well, I can't believe you turned your back on your Lord and Savior. Why do you do this? I finally got tired of that conversation at one point, and I finally turned to her. I said, well, why did you turn your back on the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus? I just finally had enough. I'm like, there's no evidence for them. I'm stating what I believe. So yeah, that was one comment that I had to her, and I know it wasn't nice, but it was just more out of frustration.
Right. Now, had you like back in your religious past, had you ever encountered like atheism kind of in the wild when you were a believer?
Not so much. I mean, if there were some people where I look back and I think were atheists. I mean, I kind of one thing I kind of think I might have been an atheist. I just more believed because I was told that's what you had to believe. Because I can think back to when I was in third or fourth grade. It was a Sunday school, and they asked us to sit outside. We were out just on the lawn, and we were just sitting in a circle, and they told us to close our eyes and tell us what we hear. Okay, fine, fun exercise to relax. And then they asked us, well, what did you hear? Well, what did God say to you? And why do you believe in God? And why do you believe that was God? And I being honest, said, I don't know if I believe in God. And they said, oh, you do believe in God. You just don't realize it yet. And from that point, I think I was just like, how can I believe in something if I don't know it? I have to know it to believe in it. And I just felt that was so dishonest. Um, so yeah, I don't think I actually ever really fully believed. I think I more believed because I was told it was right, and I kept being told it was right by going to church. So yeah, yeah.
Well, I
So I
remember.
never really. Oh,
Oh, go
sorry.
ahead.
I was gonna say, so I never really don't think I ever encountered it, like quote unquote in the wild. I mean, I knew there were people who didn't believe in God, but they were just godless heathens who we needed to preach to. That was
Oh,
more how it was described.
hey, there's nothing wrong with being a godless heathen. Okay.
I know that now.
But yeah, I was gonna say that I remember as a kid, no, I say kid. I think I was in high school. But I had this Bible study where they were like, "All right, we want you to write down what God has instructed you to be in your life." And so, like, I sat there and I thought for a minute, and at the time, I was really wanting to be a teacher. And so I pretty much just wrote that down. So I pretty much transposed what I wanted and put it in the words that they wanted to hear. And that's a pretty good example of like pretty much how my entire childhood as far as it relates to religion goes, because I mean, I wasn't really all that dedicated to the faith, you know? Like I was dedicated in the sense that I wanted friends and my friends believed in God, and plus it's normal to believe in God, so I believe in God. And
Yeah.
other than that, though, like God and religion really didn't come up unless I was feeling guilty about something. Like I never wanted to go to church. I never wanted to do any of the real Christiany things. I never really prayed. I mean, I would pray when I needed something, of course, but yeah, I really didn't adhere all that strictly to a God belief, which I think is the reason why I was able to, I guess, convert out, like, so, or not convert out, but deconvert relatively easily once I was just nudged a little bit.